Good afternoon and welcome to another WFL breakdown. I am the commissioner of the WFL and the owner of the New Orleans Saints, Coach Winuvas, and I'm here today to come in with, after seeing a couple of weeks of live action, I've noticed there's been some issues around defensive tackle usage. And for the record, defensive tackle usage is completely 100% banned in WFL. And the reason for that is really simple. And I'm going to try and show you with my limited user skills why we ban the user DT here in just a second, because I have Madden right here. Okay, and I'm going to call a play. Now I'm playing with a 3-4 book, which is not normal for me. But the reason I did this is this particular book has some plays in it that I want to highlight as far as defensive tackle usage. Now, in a three-man front, you only have one defensive tackle as far as consideration on the field, and that's the middle guy in this equation, which would be in this play set number 93, which I believe for the Saints at this point is Shy Tuttle. But I'm going to call something cover one. I'm going to call cover three Sky, and I'm going to user the DT, and I'm going to just go random play because I don't really care. Oh, it's Onyemata. Okay, so bam, let's go ahead. The reason why we don't allow DT usage is because it's very easy for even a novice user to essentially beat the CPU defenders. Of course, and then I say that, and of course I get whooped on that one. It's very easy for a user to get control of the middle of the line, and because pressure comes in from that set, I'm out of pass rush points. That's why I'm stinking high. That was a terrible throw. That's a sim game you got there, Madden. The reason we don't allow DT usage is because of the reason that they can basically dominate the interior, and we don't want that. It's kind of similar to the reason why we don't allow no switch, or we don't allow switching, I should say. Call a timeout, thank you. We don't allow switching to the cornerback or safety is because we want those interactions in the interior of the defensive line to be pure. And if you user the DT, you create an unfair advantage similar to what you do if you swap to a cornerback or to the wide receiver or to a safety that's trying to make a play on the ball. So because of that, the WFL bans defensive tackle usage. Okay, and that includes any interior defensive tackle. Now, for example, in this particular 3-4 play, this cover 3 Sky, if I were to user the player on the outside, Marcus Davenport, that's okay. He is a defensive end at this point. Okay, he's a defensive end. All right, but in some cases, which I'm gonna call a timeout here to show you some plays that I've mentioned to some guys that have asked. Something that when I look at game film, which I have looked at a couple of games over the first week, most of them have been really good. A few of them have been quite disappointing, to put it mildly. If you look at this particular nickel set, you see I have a lot of two-man defensive line. 2-4-5, 2-4-5 double A gap. But basically, in my opinion, in a two-man defensive front, right now my defensive linemen are 93 and 92. Okay? 93 and 92. I consider 93 an interior defensive lineman. I also technically consider 55 in this play set an interior defensive lineman. And the reason for that, even though he's a linebacker, is because he has a player on the outside hip, number 5, who is the fourth man in that particular 2-4-5 set. Okay, that's Quan Alexander. For those of you that are thinking that's a cornerback, that's not a linebacker. No, that's Quan Alexander, and he is a linebacker. So at this point, I would consider him the outside linebacker. I would consider 55 and 93 the interior lineman, and 92 doesn't have anybody on his outside hip that's a linebacker, so I consider him an edge rusher. So if you were to use your 93 or 55 in this particular setup, I would consider that defensive lineman, interior lineman usage. Now, is 55 actually a defensive tackle? No. 93 is David Onyemata. He is a defensive tackle. However, I could have Cam Jordan in that role, who is in this game a defensive end by default. Would that be interior defensive line usage, even though it's a defensive end playing at that spot? Yes. Just because the player's position is not listed as defensive tackle does not mean that you get to put him there and then user him. That is skirting the rules, and that will not fly with me. Okay? So in these two-man fronts, And I've told a team or two this that has asked, and thank you for those of you that are actually asking about these rules and trying to get clarification. It is noted and it is appreciated, because at least you're trying to play right by our rule set. Okay, in this setup, the 2-4-5, right now in this setup, I would consider 99 and 93 the actual interior defensive linemen. 92, who's Marcus Davenport, and 94, Cam Jordan, are the external linebackers in this case in the four-man front, but they're really just defensive ends playing at linebacker. Okay, it's really a four-man front in this case. All right, but 99 and 93 would be considered interior defensive linemen to me, defensive tackles, and that means that they can't be usured on this play. 99 and 93 would not be usurable on this play, even if they were defensive ends in the listing. Okay, and that is my personal thing. When I grade out a game, I will note if there's DT usage. I note that it's a 2-4-5 set if I see a 2-4-5 set. Okay, so I do make notations so that way if other people don't feel the same way, like our PA, our Players Association, if they don't feel the same way, they can throw those out and see just the actual DT usages. In a three-man front, you see right here, I would consider 93 the only defensive lineman. 5 is actually playing off ball outside the left tackle, so he's not technically on the line of scrimmage. And what I want to do now is I want to go to a four-man front to show you what I consider DT usage on a four-man front. So I'm going to exit out here real quick, go back in, swap myself back to the Saints again so I can talk about it and know my numbers. Oh geez, laggy. There we go. All right, advanced settings. Okay, Sean Payton's book is back. So I got the 4-3 defense that Sean Payton's runs, or ran, I should say, past tense now. Okay, so in this four-man front, in any of these sets, any of those two interior defensive linemen are unusable. So basically, in the wide 9 set, 99 and 93 are not usable. You cannot use those players. Now, if you are caught trying to switch to another defender and you get stuck on a DT and the ball is snapped, the best practice to do is one of two things. Switch very quickly before a pass is thrown, because remember, in our rules, you cannot switch if the ball is in the air. So make a switch to a different player and just try and make up the play from there. Or the other option, if you don't feel comfortable with that, do not move the defensive tackle. Yes, you take him out of the play for a play. Is it fair? No. But it's the only way to ensure that you don't over-abuse the AI manipulations that you can have at defensive tackle. It's the only way to ensure that it's a clean game from that standpoint. So again, in this particular four-man front, 99 and 93 are not legal to use. Just like they're not legal to use in the normal set. Just like they're not legal to use in the under set. Now 92 and 94 are legal to use. They are defensive ends. They are playing defensive end in a four-man front. 55 is kind of on the line, but he's outside wide of the tackle, wide of the tight end. So in this case, he is not technically on the line of scrimmage. He's off the line of scrimmage a little bit. Okay, so that does not make 94 an interior defensive lineman, but 93 and 99 are, so they are not usable. Be aware of who your interior defensive linemen are in every formation, and remember that even if they are listed as a defensive end, they cannot be usured on any play. No interior D-line play. I know the rule says defensive tackle. The spirit of the rule is interior defensive lineman. Okay, we do not want you using interior defensive linemen, because again, it's very easy to manipulate the win percentage on an interior defensive lineman. I actually saw it in a game that I registered to this week, where basically it was just about almost 100% win with the defensive tackle, and we're talking some lower end defensive tackles. Okay, we're not talking like studs like what I have in the WFL with Cam Jordan in the inside 91 overall. I'm talking like low 70s overall guys looking like as if they're the second coming of Ndamukong Suh in his prime, or Aaron Donald, or just it's ridiculous. And unfortunately, it is also illegal. Okay, and you will be reported for it. You will end up hearing from me and from the Players Association, as I am the voice of the Players Association. So you will hear from me if you use the D lineman more than a couple times a game. Now, I will say that if you accidentally get caught on a D line, okay, once or twice, nobody's perfect, not even me. So if we review tape and we see like one or two instances where you ended up on a DT or stayed on a DT, we will note them. But at the same time, if you didn't try and make an immediate impact on the play, it's not going to be something that we report you for. We will report you, however, if you basically from the snap try to make a play with that defensive lineman, that interior defensive lineman, because that is banned in the WFL. I don't have many things in the rule book for the WFL that are banned, but that is definitely one of them as I come back on camera for you. Okay? Please correct the behavior of using your interior defensive lineman. If you are unsure a particular formation, if I would consider it an interior defensive lineman, you know how to DM me. I've seen every one of you do it. So DM me if you need to ask a question. And again, that what I've shown you in this video today is what I would consider defensive lineman usage, interior defensive lineman usage. Other people that watch our game film, other gameplay gurus, may not consider it interior defensive lineman usage. I personally do. Anybody that's on the inside of the line, basically the way I view it is if you are using a player that is lined up either between the gap between the tackle and guard on either left or right side, inward, you are using an interior defensive lineman. Okay? The only way you could get around that is if you like pinch your line and you're using a defensive end to try and get some pass rush on the outside and swim out. That's something where I would give some leniency as far as being interior. But what I consider an interior defensive lineman, and this is regardless if they're listed as defensive end or a defensive tackle. I know the rule says defensive tackle, so that'll be the first thing I hear from guys is, no, you said defensive tackle can't be used. Interior defensive lineman. If Madden used the proper terminology, that's what they would be. Okay? I don't care if they're listed as a defensive end. You're playing them as a sub package for nickel and dime situations. If they are, for me, if they are between that gap between the tackle and guard on either the left or right side, inward, meaning basically on that gap, on the gap between center and guard, on top of a center, on top of not on top of a tackle, but in between the gap between the guard and the tackle. If they're on top of a tackle, they are outside. They are okay to user in that case, okay? Do not user anyone that is lined up either directly on a guard or if it looks close, user somebody else, okay? Just user somebody else. If it looks close, user somebody else for that play. Get clarification down the road and play clean like we want everybody to do here in the WFL. I know not everybody's perfect. I'm not even, so I'm not expecting everyone to be 100% perfect every single play, every single game, but I want us to make the effort to be near perfection, especially with a rule that's pretty much a ban, okay? If it's banned, I definitely don't want to see it unless it's an absolute accident. And it better be an accident. I better be able to look at the video and say, yeah, that's an accident. Yeah, he got caught switching on a snap. I shouldn't go look at a videotape and go, yeah, he's just using the defensive tackle. He's trying to get an unfair advantage. That's illegal. That's why we banned it. And that's why I wanted to make this video today. I wanted to show you the reasoning why we ban it, talk about why we ban it, give you my personal philosophy on what I consider an interior defensive lineman, which is what we ban. I realize the rule says defensive tackle. Assume interior defensive lineman, okay? And my view of the interior defensive lineman is anywhere between guard and tackle on either side, inward, okay? So if you're close, assume you're illegal and line up and place and user someone else, okay? I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I don't want to get anyone suspended. I don't want to get anyone booted for violating something that's a ban. It's not my nature to try and get rid of folks. But if you consistently do it, you will find yourself gone because I don't play around with banned stuff. I try not to ban a lot of stuff because I want you guys to have a lot of creativity. I want you to use your football knowledge to its best benefit. But at the same time, if the rules say it's banned, if the rules say it's banned, don't do it. Okay? That's as simple as I can put it. Our process is, if you're not familiar with it, You violate, we report it to a players association, which is 3 non-leadership folks that basically vote on your suspensions, if any, who gets suspended and for how long. And then once they decide that particular punishment, we enforce it as leadership. So it's not anything where I say, okay, this guy's benched for 2 games. It's 3 other people that are not leadership that decide who gets suspended and for how long. Okay? All we do as leadership is bring those violations of any type to the PA. And defensive tackle usage has been brought to the PA already this season. And I don't want to do it much more. Okay? So please, if you are the violating party, let's knock it down and let's cut it down. Okay? Let's get it to 0. Okay? Let's get it to 0 or as close to 0 as we can get it. If you aren't a violating party and you catch this video and you kind of get some clarification, great. Awesome. Keep playing the way you are. Most of the games I watched in week 1 that I got a chance to partake of, some of it was snippets, some of it was full game, looked very good. I can't complain about the quality of gameplay. But just be aware that we have seen some issues, especially with the banned defensive tackle usage. And so I wanted to make this video today to kind of clarify the WFL's position on what we consider defensive tackle usage, or what I consider defensive tackle usage. So kind of take that as the standard for which we want to see going forward, okay? Hopefully this will clear everything up for you. If it doesn't, if it's still clear as mud, again, message me, message leadership, let us know, ask. It never hurts to ask. I'd rather answer the question than have to be the bearer of bad news and bring a punishment to you, okay? I don't ever want to do that, but as the commissioner, that's part of the wonderful parts of my job, and I use the word wonderful sarcastically. Just don't be that guy, okay? Please don't be that guy. I can't put it any more heartfelt than that. Don't be that guy, okay? That's it for this video. Hopefully you get something out of it. It wasn't meant to be a long video, but I wanted to explain philosophy, I wanted to explain positioning, and I wanted to explain how the process works for suspensions and things of that nature as well. So that way there's zero gray area, hopefully, after you see this video. Okay, so for the WFL, I am the commissioner and coach of the New Orleans Saints, Coach Winuvas. I appreciate you checking out this video, this WFL breakdown video, and until next time, guys, I will catch you later.